Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of STAGR Cast. This is your host, Adam Lamson, and today we have a special guest calling in all the way from Canada, Matt Sabean. In this episode, we're embarking on an exciting adventure to explore the captivating world of hunting in the big woods of Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, comparing it to hunting just across the border in the States. Join us as we take a closer look at the unique buck hunting opportunities that this part of eastern Canada has to offer. We'll delve into the hunting techniques, the deer herd, and the diverse habitats that come from this part of Canada. During our conversation, Matt will share his experiences and insights, providing us with a glimpse into the hunting opportunities one can expect to find there. We'll uncover his strategies for scouting, how he locates bucks, how the season's set up, as well as get a peek into his personal hunting background with his father and his brother. As always, we appreciate you tuning into this episode of STAGR Cast, and as we said before, this episode was recorded over the phone, so there may be a few segments of some fuzzy or broken audio, but there's a lot of great information to be absorbed here. Without further ado, let's dive right into this episode.
You're listening to STAGR Cast, brought to you by STAGR Gear.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of STAGR Cast. This is Adam. I'm sitting down here with Greg.
Hello.
And we're recording this after the podcast. Turns out I forgot to press record for the first 30 seconds of the episode. So when we dive into the episode here, we start talking with Matt about the Canadian wildfires, what's going on up there. So that's kind of where you're getting thrown into the conversation. Didn't miss a whole lot there in the beginning, but we hope you enjoy this episode with Matt Sabean. He's actually the first Canadian we had on the air, and we're talking some Canadian buck hunting and some backcountry deer up there. So hope you guys enjoy this, and we'll dive right into the episode right now.
Storm and humid and raining, and so I think more or less those things should be out by now. I don't know.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, it's we're still getting a little smoke warnings every now and then, but the skies are starting to clear up, man.
It's a little foggy
I
today.
guess there were some fires. Yeah, there were still some fires on the go in Quebec, but Nova Scotia, don't blame me anymore. We're done.
All right. So kind of like on the other podcast, what we do is we do a little intro on you. So if you want to, give us a little intro, where you're from, what you do, how you get into deer hunting, all that stuff.
Yeah. I'm originally from New Brunswick. I'm living in Nova Scotia now, and I'm a family doctor here. I've been here since late 2019. And it's definitely a good spot to deer hunt. We don't quite get the snow that you guys in Nova Scotia. We don't get the snow you guys will get probably through Maine and Vermont, New Hampshire, but we still do get the snow. But anyways, I've been hunting deer since I can remember. Hunting since I can remember. My dad and my brother and I, we've just been in the woods ever since, we were in diapers, more or less. They had a camp in New Brunswick, and my dad, he probably started hunting New Brunswick in the heyday in the mid 80s, but kind of didn't really start nailing big ones until the late 90s when he started to figure it all out.
Yep.
But we watched him hammer some big ones, and he got into tracking. He was more of maybe a sitter in the late 90s, but then, the Benoits came out with their stuff, and the Hal Blood books and stuff started coming out late 90s, early 2000s. And we sat down in the living room many a day and watched those over and over. And my dad got into tracking a bit more and started killing bucks that way. So we kind of followed in his footsteps, my brother and I. Yep. He's still at it. He's still at it hard.
Good. Yeah, I think I've seen some pictures on your Instagram of a big old buck your dad took back in the day, and then I think it was you and your brother, little guys, sitting next to it or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, you grew up from New Brunswick, or from Nova Scotia, right? Say that again. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, from New Brunswick, and then got into med school in Newfoundland in 2011.
Yeah.
Moved over there. Did some salmon fishing and some moose hunting over there. It's the mecca for salmon fishing and moose hunting. You can pretty much just put your name in for a moose and get it almost every year.
Yeah.
And then started a family met my wife, started a family over there. She was pregnant. We decided wanted to be a bit closer to family to get the help, you need when you start a family and whatnot. It takes a village. So we wanted to get back closer. So we settled into Nova Scotia. I signed a good contract here as a family doctor, and that kind of freed me up to do more hunting. It wasn't tied to the hospital, more just a community family practice. And now I hustle all year and save up my vacation days for November.
Hey.
So how does it work up there as far as when you became a resident of Nova Scotia? Do you have to have a guide up there if you're not a resident, or how does that work up there?
Yeah, you would. You would have to have a guide. Actually the first full year of deer season here, I set up a wall tent in the Cobequid Mountains, kind of northern Nova Scotia mainland, and I wanted my dad, my brother to come up, and they were living in. My dad was in Brunswick, my brother was in PEI, and the New Brunswick season ends before Nova Scotia does, so he finished off his season in New Brunswick, and I had to basically buy a guide's license and I can guide, I think, 3 guys at a time. So my brother, my dad, and my buddy Nathan,
Nice.
They all came up and spent the week with me. So as long as I was in the area, they were good to go and go hunt, and they did. And we had a good time. So yeah, you need a guide, but they don't need to be right tight with you.
Okay.
There's a certain distance. I forget exactly what it is. I mean, we kind of bent the rules there a little bit, but
yeah. Well, I was telling you before the podcast started that my grandfather bought some land up in Nova Scotia, and this is many, many, many years ago. And then the whole intention was to go up and deer hunt, and then he found out about the guide rule, and he was too proud to do it or something. So the land's just been sitting up there forever. But I remember as a kid going up there, and it was just absolutely beautiful up there. I mean, bald eagles everywhere. The trout streams are full of brook trout. I don't know if it's still like that, but I mean, it was just incredible as a kid going up there.
Yeah, and it's kind of like Maine and probably Vermont, New Hampshire. Like, it's a big province, so like the south of the province is different than the north of the province, and then you got Cape Breton Island, which is just kind of like Newfoundland. It's just totally wild, big mountains, clear rivers, fish and moose and deer everywhere, kind of thing. It's kind of it's a pretty special spot up there. And I'm living in a place called the Valley, which just by its name you can kind of tell it'd be a deer haven. And it's between, basically there's a long north mountain that runs east to west, obviously, and then there's a south mountain. And then in between there, you've got the valley. So if you look at a topo map, you'll see there's a long run of mountains. And then and it's all woodlands, softwood, hardwood, what have you. And then down the middle, it's all farmland. And then the north mountain's the same as the south mountain. It's all woods. It's not farmed or anything like that. But in between, it's all farmland. Now, I don't hunt the farmland, but I mean, I think those valley deer, they come up into the hills and chase those does every fall. So it makes for a good scene come late October and November up on the mountain.
So do those deer up there, they kind of yard up like they do in Maine? They come down to that farmland and stuff in the winter?
Yeah, they'll yard. Yeah, they'll yard up. This year was a crazy year. This past winter, I just checked some cameras I had up since, last fall, and I didn't realize it, but we didn't have any substantial amount of snow until late February. So, I mean, this should be a banger. But, just like they would in Maine and all those, the New England states there, they'll yard up pretty hard when it gets cold enough, and when the snow gets heavy enough. I'll go in the woods where I hunt in the fall where it's full of deer, and I mean, you hardly find a rabbit track in the middle of the winter.
Yeah.
They're out of there, yeah.
What's the hunting culture like up there? Because I mean, we were talking about before how it's kind of grown a lot, and the states down here with tracking and big woods hunting over the last 5 to 10 years, and even since the Benoits came out. What's the hunting culture like up there? Is there a lot of big woods hunters, or is it kind of less pressure, or how's it set up there?
Yeah, I think in New Brunswick, it's more of a. They've taken more from the Benoit, the old school tracking ways, and you have to kind of. I remember one of the last years I had in New Brunswick, it was 2018, and my God, I was pushing snow in my Tacoma. There were roads I couldn't even get into because I was scared I wasn't going to get out. And I was fighting I got cut off on 2 tracks, which 2018 was the first year I actually got cut off. But man, in Nova Scotia, at least in the valley where I'm at, first of all, we don't get as much snow. We can't rely on snow in the season. I mean, the season does go into early December, so you might get a couple of days, but I've not had any issues with people cutting me off the times I've been out tracking. There's mostly, and it's kind of, I consider it cheating, but a lot of guys are just, they're sitting in stands and they got bait piles out, which I don't agree with.
Oh, you guys can bait up there, huh?
Yeah, they can bait, and I think pretty more or less everyone that I talk to, I mean, they're sitting on bait.
No kidding.
So it's pretty sad state of affairs, and for a lot of people, just I don't consider that really a hunt, but yeah, a lot of guys are doing it. It's kind of like the Lance Armstrong thing, everybody's doing steroids, so you might as well do steroids too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
So a lot of guys are shooting bucks over bait. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you with the climate change, what you've seen up there as far as has definitely been less tracking like days, or is it? Have you seen it that far up north, or is it?
Yeah. Well, I don't. I've only got a small sample size in Nova Scotia. Like I've hunted here the last 3 full seasons, and it's a good season. Like I said, it goes from the 11th for bow and of September for bow, all the way out to December 9th if you got a bow or muzzleloader.
Yep.
So you can pretty much, the 3 years I've been here, there's been at least a couple tracking days mixed in there, every year. And one came as early as Halloween. I remember the first track I got on, he was just a monster. One of those gazebo horses that Isaac talks about. And yeah, that was October 31st. And then the next year we didn't have snow until December the 3rd or 4th. So
yeah. Well, one
you just never know.
One good thing about baiting, I mean, back when they allowed it in Vermont, I mean, it's still like the biggest of the big bucks. They kind of weren't susceptible to bait. They'd stay on the outskirts of the bait. So maybe your big ones aren't all getting shot up on bait piles. So that's one positive.
Yeah, those deer know. You got a guy pulling up in his truck or his ATV walking, 70 yards into the woods over a bait pile that's got a cell cam on it. Like, I mean, those big ones, they don't get big for no reason. They're hanging out way down the ridge somewhere, and they're eating all the guys' hard-earned money off at midnight. And
that's funny.
And then laughing all the way back down to his bed in the swamp somewhere.
No kidding. So you said you got bow season starts in September and then it runs all the way into December with bow and muzzleloader. Is the rifle season kind of like ours down here, right in the peak rut, right in middle of November, or what?
Yeah. So the bow, it'll start on the 11th this year. It's the second Monday in September, I think it is. But rifle starts late October. I think it's the 4th Monday in October, and then it goes to the first Saturday in December. Then you get an extra week. They call it a primitive tag. You get an extra week on top of that on the other end of rifle for a muzzleloader or bow.
Nice.
So, and you can use. So last year I used both of my tags. So you can use for your rifle tag. You can use your bow or your muzzleloader tag. So you can shoot 2 deer. So last year I shot both my deer with the bow.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, both in like main rifle season, general season, but
pretty similar to ours down here.
Okay, yeah.
Yep. How is the deer population up there compared to some of the northern states we have down here? It's kind of the deer density is pretty low. Is it same up there, or is it with people feeding them? Is the population better, or what would you say?
Yeah, it's kind of like the more southern you go, the easier the winters, the better it is. Like there's the South Shore of Newfoundland and is kind of polluted with deer.
Yeah.
And then if you go up into the Cobequid Mountain Range or, toward Cape Breton or something, you're going to have a harder time finding deer. Although I do, and the same thing is, the big woods anywhere. It's like, it's a checkerboard deal. Like there's patches of woods that, you don't see any shit. There's no tracks, there's no rubs, there's no scrapes, there's no nothing. And you walk through there and you could, you'd never jump a deer kind of thing. And then there's other patches where there's a doe group or two, and those are the ones you kind of want to hang in the rut just to, you find the buck sneaking through them. But in New Brunswick, northern New Brunswick, where I was hunting, it's pretty few and far between deer. Where like growing up, I turned 16 in 2004, and 16 you can start hunting with a rifle without anybody with you in New Brunswick. And I was in school, and obviously I was gunning it hard for med school, and so I was a weekend warrior, and we didn't have Sunday hunting. So between 2004 and 2012, I was a weekend warrior getting 3-4 weekends
Yep.
a year, Saturdays a year, so days total to hunt. And I mean, there was lots of times I'd sit all day, and I mean, I think there was, if you saw a doe, you were doing good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hey, that's the same way up in northern Maine in that area. You see a doe, you're talking about it.
Yeah, and like I think there's like when my dad started, like I said in the heyday in the mid '80s and into the mid '90s, like there was a lot of deer. So he's got the perspective. I mean, he talks about it was nothing to go into the woods, and and every day something you come back to camp and you talk about the deer you saw, and then it got to the point where in 2002 or 3 or somewhere in there, my dad takes 3 or 4 weeks in deer in November to hunt, and he saw one deer one fall, and he's a good hunter, and he's out there dark to dark. So
wow.
It's it got pretty desolate there for a bit. I think it's coming around. I think it's coming back around, and the milder winters and whatnot are helping a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So
yep.
I'd say it's fairly similar to where you guys are experiencing down over there.
Yep.
Because where I'm at here now, if you look at the map, I'm probably the same latitude as where I'm hunting now. I'm probably just north of Bangor, Maine.
Okay.
And maybe a little bit above Burlington, Vermont. I don't know what you guys consider that as far as like north, south, middle, whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Burlington's, it's.
And,
I guess it's up north, but
yeah. In New Brunswick, I was hunting as high as Allagash, Maine. So that's
Yep.
where I was hunting New Brunswick.
Yeah.
So pretty north, I think.
Yep. How does a quick question for you, like down in Maine and Vermont and stuff, we have big pieces of national forest and state forest, and then a lot of like timber company land. How does it set up there? Is it I've heard before on other podcasts, is it called crown land up there? That's like your public ground?
Yeah.
So how's that set up as far as
mostly?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, okay, yeah, keep cutting you off.
No, you're good.
Yeah, I hear you guys talk about all that stuff all the time, and I think so crown land, it's owned by the province. You can hunt crown land, you don't need special permission. It's free land for everybody to hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a whole lot of private land in New Brunswick. In Nova Scotia, it's a lot of private land, but there's a pretty good deal with that. So you do not have to have permission on private land to hunt unless that private land is being used for financial gain. So it's a Christmas tree plantation, or it's a food crop, or it's it's being cut off for you can't hunt around a cutting operation, obviously, while it's active. But like if it's not being actively used for financial gain, even if it says no hunting on it, that's just, they might as well burn the signs because they're not worth anything. It's so yeah. In Nova Scotia, there's a lot of private land, but there's a lot of freedom for hunters to still, respect the land and respect the landowner, but still hunt it.
Yep. Going back to the hunting culture up there. So is more emphasis. I see your Instagram page. You've gotten a number of really, really big bucks, and is the emphasis up there on the racks or the body size? And then what is considered a big buck body wise for Nova Scotia?
Yeah, well, the marker for me, and my heritage has always been that 200-pounder, and that's still kind of my goal. I've never killed a 200-pounder, but I think if you talk to the general population, they got their eyes fixated on the bone. And I think that's just kind of like I think it's a rare breed who focuses more on the weight than on the antler size.
Yep.
So for me, it's definitely weight. When I drag that deer home and I put him on the pole, the thing I'm most excited about is definitely putting the scale on the block and tackle and hauling up there and seeing where that needle falls.
Yep.
And yeah. So
yeah. So do you guys don't have to you don't have to bring them into like a reporting station like we do down here as far as weighing them in? What do you guys do? Just call them in and stuff?
It's a relatively new thing. You used to have to. You used to have to go to a registration station and get a tag for them and register them and get them. You didn't have to get them late or anything, but now it's like, everything's going online. So now I'm registering online rather than going to the station.
Yeah, that's handy.
That's super convenient now to be able to register them online, but it does kill one little segment of the fun of it, which was, drop the tailgate, take a ride, and
I remember. It does. It definitely does. I remember in 2015, I shot a buck and a nice 9-pointer. I shot him, still hunting. And on November the 11th, that's our Remembrance Day. I think you guys call it Veterans Day over down in the States.
Yep.
But I remember pulling into that registration station, and as soon as I pulled in, over the radio came the there's a trumpet tune. What's that called again? Where you observe a moment of silence.
Yeah.
The last post came on the radio, and I just remember sitting in that driveway with the buck in the back, observing the moment of silence, and it was just the best experience ever.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was fun going to that station. It's good fun, but
interesting. There's a lot. Yeah, it's funny. You're just a border away, but just the stuff is just different up there. It's awesome though. There's a lot of similarities and stuff and differences. It's pretty sweet. But I want to talk to you about your 2022 season because you killed 2 bucks, right? You said both with a bow up there.
Yeah.
One of them was an absolute hammer, which you got up there. But take us through your 2022 season. I want to hear about all that and how you went about it.
Okay. Yeah. No, he was a good one. But So since moving to Nova Scotia, I've actually had a chance to scout out a season. Whereas when I was in Newfoundland, I'd come home to New Brunswick and hunt every year, and I wouldn't have a chance to scout at all. It was kind of like you're in the woods and you're going on last year's intel. But last 2022 was kind of a result of 2021. In 21, I bow hunted the same piece of woods. And I got a 3-pointer, and then I went off to the Cocoa Mountains and set up the tent and hunted for a week up there. But while I was away hunting, obviously I had some cameras soaking in the woods. And at the end of the season, in December and January, I went in and picked up those cams. And one cam I put up in October. It was just a crappy $30 camera. You can't even set the date or time on it. It's kind of just you throw it up and it takes pictures kind of thing. And if it gets broken, whatever. But anyways, I put it in this little piece. It's kind of a plateau on a ridge side, a little shelf, and the upper part is kind of thick hardwoods and the lower part is softwoods. But it was this nice little shelf, and I walked along the shelf for a mile or two, and there was no sign. All of a sudden, there was this signpost rub, and then I saw another rub, and then I saw another rub. So I'm like, I'm going to fire a camera up here, and I put that up in October, and I picked it up in late December. And then, what I saw on it was pretty rocking. I saw there was not one mature buck, but three mature bucks in daylight in the rut. So I heard some guy say one time, he said, if one big buck goes through a spot, cool. If 2 goes through that spot, well, there's something to it. And if 3 goes through that spot, you better hunt there. So I was like, well, I'm putting the stand up in here next year.
Yep.
So that's what I did, and I found that does were funneling through that spot almost every other time I was in there. Does were funneling through there in the morning, and I knew it was just a matter of time. I'd sit there, and a buck would come rolling through. So I kind of said to myself, I'm going to do a Brett Joy, and I'm just going to do all day sits for a week.
Yeah.
Because there was no snow anywhere. There was no snow in the forecast, and I knew bucks were going to roll through there. Those were in heat.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I sat there on the 13th, 14th, 15th. I saw a doe 1 out of 3 of those days. And then on the 16th, a few does came rolling through, probably around 9:30. They just walked right up through. And then, around 2 o'clock, it started hailing, and then the hail turned to rain, and I couldn't hear a damn thing. and by the corner of my eye, it comes that broken off 6-pointer.
Yeah.
Rolling up the trail, the same exact trail those doe came up that morning. And he probably stopped, I don't know, 15 yards to my left. And I'm a righty, so it was perfect. But he stopped right behind this sapling that's like, I don't know, striped maple or something. Anyways, it was about 2 inches wide, and it was covering his shoulder. And I was like, well, shit, what do? I want to shoot because I knew he was going to start walking again.
Yeah.
So I just leaned out and put the pin behind his shoulder and I nailed him, and it came right out the other side out through his neck. So it was a pretty sharp quarter-inch shot, but he didn't go too far. I left him for a half hour, and I got out, and there was no blood trail, but I saw where he danced off into, and I walked up. I could smell him, and I kept going, and yeah, you know how it is. You see the big white belly and sticking out, and then there's the antlers, and it's pretty good feeling. So
yeah,
not a good tracking story, but it was a good. It was my biggest bow at that time, biggest buck with the bow.
Yeah,
and yeah, he wasn't a big buck. He went, I think, 150.
150. Yeah.
So a nice 2.5-year-old, I think, probably.
Yep. A lot of these trackers, they track and they don't have the patience to sit. So that's really good that you're versatile like that. I mean, sometimes the conditions call for that, and if you want to hunt, you're gonna have to sit and you're gonna have to be patient. So, and not everybody can do that.
Yeah.
So that's kudos to you for being able to stick it out.
I always say if it snows, I goes no matter what. So
I like that.
But I pre-booked my vacation because I gotta make sure that no patients are booked. Like I can't just cancel a clinic on the spot. Well, I can, but I don't want to make a habit of it. So I pre-booked my vacation for prime rut, which here prime rut, and it might be the same where you guys are, but to me, from the data and what I've seen over the years, it starts, and my dad always said this too, but it starts right around November the 11th, and it peaks probably between the 16th and the 23rd of November. And then it tails, and then there's a little tiny spike, maybe the 26th, 27th, 28th.
Yep.
And then it really tails off. But then there's another nice peak, right? Probably between October 28th and November the 6th.
A little early one in there.
You'll see some daylight movement.
Interesting. Yeah, it's pretty similar as far as I always find my best rut days are like 17th or 16th, 17th, 18th. So right about the same time for sure.
Yeah, that's right. Like the camera, just the camera data, I've collected over the last few years. Those are exactly the same thing. It just really heats up right in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And you can pretty much set your watch. I mean, weather dictates to some degree, but so then you got your first deer there, and then what? Take us into that second one.
Yeah. Okay. So there was, and if you watch the video, I talk about there being a couple mature bucks rolling through there. I had a chance to check a couple. We can't hunt on Sunday, so I use those Sundays to kind of sneak around and check a few cameras here and there if I got some up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did, and I knew there was does in there, and there was 2 smashing big bucks in there. And I was like, okay, well, I know it's kind of a funnel in there where my stand was. Like I said, traffic seemed to kind of take the path of least resistance in there. And so I was like, I gotta keep hunting. I can't hang it up yet. So I still have another tag. I wanted to hold out for snow. I wanted to leave it and hang the bow up and take the lever action out of the cabinet. But with those two big ones hanging around, I just had to go sit. So the 16th was, I think the 16th maybe was a Wednesday.
Yep.
And then Thursday, it wasn't cold enough, so I didn't want to hang that deer too long. So I think I said I'll take Thursday morning and I'll butcher this deer. So I processed that 6-pointer in the shed that next morning, and then I said I'll hunt that evening. So I went into that same exact spot, and the crows were just going crazy in there. The gut pile was a good feast for them, and I checked a trail cam going in, and there was a friggin' just a monster 10-pointer in there at that walked right through there at, I think it was 10 after 7 that morning, just getting light enough to shoot. So I missed him, and I said, well, shit, I got to stay in here now, and I just got to plant my ass and not move until I shoot another deer. And I think that was my second week off. I think I went to work the next week. So that was Thursday. Friday, I sat all day, dark to dark. I didn't see anything. Saturday, I sat all day, dark to dark. I didn't see anything. Sunday was off. And so Monday, I had to go back into work. But the weather didn't look great Monday anyway, so I wasn't too worried about it. And then I told my receptionist, I'm taking Tuesday and Wednesday off. So it was the 22nd and the 22nd and the 23rd. I'm like, it's been too long since the big buck's been there. There's going to be another one through there. Anyway, so I sat the 22nd, dark to dark. Again, I didn't see anything. But like you guys say, like, you know, the more days you sit and don't see anything, you're getting closer and closer to seeing that deer. So I said, I'll sit one more day, dark to dark, and then I'll have to go back to work because my patients are going to be pissed. So I went in, I walked in there. So it was one of those mornings where it's kind of like the wind. I got in there, you know, before light, but on the way in, the wind would blow and then it would be dead silent, and then it would blow a little bit and be dead. So I just remember walking in, and I was just using that wind to cover me going in, cover my sound. So it took me about an hour to get in there, and you know, in a nice quiet day, it might only take 15 minutes. But anyways, I got in there, and I wasn't up in the stand. I was up in the stand maybe half hour before light, but I wasn't up there 15 minutes. And to my right in tight to where I walked in, I heard 5 soft grunts, one right after the other, after the other.
Oh, man.
And my hair stood up, and I was like, man, one of those bastards is in here. So, and then I'm listening, and I can hear it walking. It's probably like 30 yards in the woods to my right, which I can't see to the right very far, even in light. It's really thick softwoods. And yeah, he starts coming in, and he goes left to right on my right side, and he goes in behind my stand, and the wind is blowing right in my face. Perfect if a deer's out in front of me, but he went right in behind, and I don't know if he crossed my trail. He must have crossed my trail where I walked in, and then it just went silent. It was like he was coming, and then everything just went dead. And I'm like, man, he snuck out of here. He's gone. He definitely winded me. He didn't blow or anything, but it just went silent. So I'm thinking, well, he's in here somewhere. I mean, I'm committed. I'm going to stay dark to dark. So anyways, it's a stand hunting story. I mean, so not a whole lot of action. It's just around 9:30 in the morning. I can hear deer walking. I can on my left side, coming up that little deer run, that little deer trail.
Yeah.
And I don't want to move my head. I just move my eyes to the left, and then I just see these yellow antlers coming through the woods. Yeah. And it's like tight beech trees and stuff like that into where he was. He wasn't on the deer trail, typically like a buck, they kind of go off trail a little bit anyway. Yeah. He was coming in off trail, and then he turned in toward the trail, and when he turned, he was more or less broadside of me. And a blue jay, there was blue jays everywhere in there. Anyway, the blue jay started screaming, and he stopped and looked toward it, and I just put the pin on him, and I didn't even take my time. I just let it fly. He was only 15 yards, and a nice pass through. I thought I shot him a little high. Called my buddy Nathan, who's a bow hunter, and I told him all about it. And he said, just wait. And I went down and passed through, arrows in the ground, covered in blood. There was a bit of snow, a skiff of snow, not enough to track on, really patchy, but he lit it right up with blood, and he didn't go 40 yards into that thick stuff on my right, where he was probably that morning grunting at me. Mm-hmm. And there he was, just laying off in the distance, laying just majestic, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just laying there, big old rack on him, like the biggest rack deer I'd ever shot. And I couldn't even walk up to him for a minute. I just had to take it in. I just had to look at him and just take it in and just try and soak it up, because that doesn't happen very often. You put a lot of work in it. You put a lot of time and hours, and when it all comes together, you just got to try not to get the phone out too quick. Try to just soak it up and close your eyes and just take a snapshot like that before you start taking pictures.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What were the stats on that deer as far as the weight and the antlers?
Yeah, I have no idea, honestly. Inches, I don't really care. I don't think about it too much. You guys have seen the pictures. I don't know. Maybe you could give me an estimate. I have no idea.
I gotta pull it up real quick and look. But he's a beauty. He's let me take a guess here.
Yeah.
Well, they got character up there. They got some really nice character racks up there too. I mean, it's just thick and just unique, you know.
A lot of mass, dude. That buck had a lot of mass, didn't he? He like carried it all the way out and through.
He did. He's a 9. Well, he's I got 5 on the left and I think 4 on the right. He's a 9-pointer. He's got 1. I don't know if you count it. It's a point on the right side you could hang a key on. So that's what I always say. You count it if you can hang a key on it.
I'd say 145, 150, and you look good with your STAGR gear on there too in the background. I must say.
Oh, those gloves, man! Those gloves and that vest were primo. They were deadly. I love those things.
Well, we appreciate
you guys put out some good stuff. Yeah,
thanks.
And the bag, and stuff you guys come out with this year. That frame for the GoPro is perfect, and like you guys were saying, it doesn't weigh much at all. Like that's an excellent setup. Jeff Doyle will be proud.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he kind of pioneered the whole over the shoulder thing, and nowhere.
Yeah, I got to sit next to Jeff Doyle at the Northeast Big Buck Club show. Him and his dad this weekend, man, they're really good people. So.
Oh yeah.
But that was cool.
Yeah, he contacted me a couple of years ago. I did a charcoal drawing for him of one of his bucks up in the Adirondacks.
Nice.
So him and I have had a little bit of contact, but no, he puts out some excellent stuff, as we all know.
Yeah, your drawings are pretty sweet there too. I was looking down through your Instagram there a while back, and you got some really cool drawings. That's awesome.
Yeah, for people that don't know, what is your Instagram handle? Just your name, or
it's you could search up Matt Sabean, but the handle is a guy in a tent.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
And we're going to talk about we're going to talk about that tent stuff here in a minute. But I got a couple questions more about the hunting stuff. But I want to pick your brain on that, sleeping out in the woods in a tent, because that's pretty cool and that's growing. But for someone, so like I commend you for being able to sit all day. That's what I mean. Your patience killed those bucks this year and being able to sit. What do you got for advice for people that need to sit all day? Like, what would you recommend? Whether it be, what do you bring with you to keep you entertained, or what do you do for all day sits?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I recommend, it's almost impossible these days for people to do it, but I recommend you leave your phone at home if you
can. Really?
Because it takes away from the experience, and it's too distracting.
Okay.
Like you're out in the woods for a reason. You're trying to get away from that stuff. You're trying to get away from texts. You're trying to get away from the stresses of life.
Yeah.
But I don't think very few people will do that. If you're sitting, you don't need Onyx. You don't need all that stuff.
Yeah.
You're not going to get lost in the woods if you're sitting. Unless you are walking out into the woods and you just decide to sit because it's a prime spot and you're still hunting and you want to sit down. That's different. But the other thing is, you gotta stay awake. So there's no good to go sit and then fall asleep. So I always pack a 5-hour energy, and I toss that back at around 10 in the morning.
That's awesome.
Or some coffee, and I'm not too worried about deer smelling my coffee.
Yeah.
So I'll pack a coffee too.
Yeah.
In a cozy, so it doesn't like make a bunch of noise on whatever is metallic.
Yep.
The other thing is you really need to be in a spot that you are confident that if you sit there long enough, you are going to see a buck. Like, don't sit where you want the deer to be. Sit where you know the deer are going to be.
That's good. That's a good point.
The reason I was able to do those sits this year is because I knew last year that there were 3 mature bucks in daylight rolling through that. And I didn't have any other camera that showed me that anywhere. So I just knew it was going to happen. And you got to stay warm, obviously, too. So you got to, if you got to pack a thermosol to put in your glove, or you got to, whatever you need to stay warm,
Mm-hmm. That's a hell of a lot better advice than my buddy. I mean, he's an all-day setter too, and his advice to me was just watch porn on your phone all day, and the day will go by quick. So I was like, I like to say,
battery will run out pretty quick too.
Your way's better for everybody listening.
That's a good way.
I didn't want to say that's the distraction, but that is the distraction.
Damn right.
Yeah, that is the distraction. Yeah.
So you're not taking any naps out there while you're doing it. You're focused the whole time. That's one thing I found myself. I catch myself dozing off.
Yeah, you can't. Well, yeah. If I'm starting to fall asleep, I've done this a lot of times. I just will get down at the stand and I will sit on the ground for a little bit and have a sleep.
Yep.
Like if you need to, you need to.
Oh yeah.
But that's how I learned to pack some caffeine. And you can even get caffeine capsules and stuff, which are actually a bit more effective on a medical note than drinking a coffee. If you take a capsule, it's got more staying power than a coffee does. So
interesting. I'll have to look into that. I've never taken a caffeine tab, but I drink too many energy drinks to stay awake, so I'm gonna have to look into that one.
Yeah, Adam. Adam gave me an energy drink last year, and I went home and started shooting my bow, and next thing I know, I was laying on the lawn sweating through my clothes. I don't know. Maybe I need to go see a doctor. Maybe me and you can have a telephone.
That was just a little too much caffeine.
If you can shoot your bow after one of those, you're doing all right.
Oh man, so I kind of want to feed off of what you said about being confident where you sit, and a lot of that comes back to all the scouting you do. And it's, if you look on your Instagram and follow along with you, you're pretty active when it comes to scouting and finding, the key areas and stuff. So what is what's like the primary deer habitat up there as far as like the woods? Like, Maine has a lot of softwood, Vermont has a lot of hardwood. How does it kind of break down up there? And then how do you kind of dissect those pieces of woods to find your deer?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. Well, like, we don't always get snow in our. I'll come out to the habitat stuff in a second, but just to back up, we don't always get snow to hunt on in the fall, but we always get snow, and usually our first snow will be in December, and that is the most important scouting you can do is on the snow right after the season. I have found so many spots. First of all, when tracking, but if outside of the season on snow, like the spot I'm going to hunt this year is based on scouting I did in December. Well, I found a nice spot where there's a lot of deer hanging out with some big signpost shrubs, and I found those on snow. So I use the snow, number one, and then I use, my cameras, number two, which I normally just put on primary, like big old scrapes that deer are using year round, if you can find those, or rub lines. But the habitat, it depends again where you are in the province, but where I've hunted in New Brunswick and in Nova Scotia, you're getting a lot of hemlocks and spruce and fir and a lot of beech, popple, birch, maple.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And if you're, So, and then you'll get a lot of wet spots. So when I'm in big woods, I'll look specifically for like beaver flowages that come up against maybe like some cutting with some hardwood softwood mix.
Mm-hmm.
So a bunch of transitions all coming together in big woods is where I'll usually find some does. And in the rut, that's my primary thing, is like hang out where the does are. Don't worry about scrapes. Don't worry about rubs. Like get in with the does, because that's where the bucks are going to want to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's great advice.
Yeah, absolutely. There's that's one thing I've never really done a whole lot of, is hunting around those beaver flies, as they call them, over in the Adirondacks and in the bogs and stuff. Because Vermont, we're just pretty much steep. Yeah. There's not a whole lot of beaver flows and stuff. And then up in Maine, there's a little bit more of that. But it seems like the Adirondacks has like the most amount of, or like at least the Western Adirondacks have the most amount of those like beaver flow areas. And like it sounds like a lot of bucks get killed. We had Glenn Bombardier on there. He killed his buck out in a beaver flow, and the 80K tracker guys, they all hunt those beaver flows, and that seems to be a key spot. So that's something I want to figure out one day and do some more of, for sure.
Yeah, I think they call them flies over there.
Flies, yeah, that's what
they're flies, So we kind of wanted to get a tracking story from you too. Like we know you're big time into tracking, and we wanted to hear about last year because that was pretty unique, being able to get 2 deer with the bow, 2 nice bucks with the bow. But you have a memorable tracking story you'd like to tell us, as far as like one of your nicest, doesn't necessarily have to be a big buck, just a good story as far as tracking one down.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I was pretty tied up with school and stuff for a long while. I was a weekend warrior for hunting for a while, so I didn't get into doing the tracking as much as I wanted to until probably 2013. And again, like with the season in New Brunswick, which is where I was hunting between 2013 and 2019, it's so ridiculously short. We wouldn't get snow every year to hunt on. It would often come the week after. So I track when I can, and it's definitely my favorite way to spend the day in the woods hunting deer. But no, I've been pretty good at getting deer on the track, if you're talking about getting them up out of their beds. But I haven't successfully completed the kill on the track. But I do have a lot of near misses on the track. So in 2018, I should have shot 2 deer on the snow, but I was hunting with a new rifle. Wild West Guns Copilot 4570, Marlin 4570, nice gun and everything. But the new Marlins have this stupid thing. It's a crossbolt safety where it's like a push button, like the 7600s have. But growing up, I hunted with lever action rifles, like a Marlin 3030, and it always had just a half cock safety.
Yeah.
With the hammer, but the new one's got the crossbolt. Anyways. So I would always have that thing on the red is dead because I just relied on the hammer. But anyways, we got our first snow in 2018. One of those typical days where it snows hard all night. It's like a storm, and you wake up and you can't find a track anywhere because the deer haven't really had a chance to put down tracks yet.
Yep.
So anyways, around 3:00 after driving around all day and burning up gas, I ended up getting out on foot, and I did cut a track finally, a nice buck track. And I knew it couldn't have been old because it only stopped snowing, an hour before, and there was no snow in it. And he was crossing this cut, so I parked my truck up the road a ways, and I got onto this track, and he took me up this ridge side, up this mountainside, and he kind of weaved and fed and weaved as he went, and I was probably going a little too slow. It was only an hour and a half or an hour before dark. I should have gone fast on it, but anyways, he ended up going to the top of this mountain, and he was on a straight line. It was getting dark, so I had to leave it. So the next day I said, I'm going to go back up there and I'm going to get on that deer again, because we still had some good snow the next day. It didn't melt off. It didn't freeze too bad. There was a little crust on top of the snow, but not too bad. And so I got back on it, and he'd only bedded, when I left him, I GPS'd it, he'd only bedded 150 yards from where I left him, and under a softwood overhang. So I was right there on him, and when I left him the night before. So I got back on him, and he got in with a doe, and they kind of fed around and did their thing, and tracks everywhere. And then he crossed this road, and then another buck joined the crowd, and it looks like they might have had a fight, and the subordinate buck kind of left on his own. Still a nice buck, and I could tell I kind of lost the original buck's track, and I could tell that the buck that went solo, he was a bit fresher, because with that crust, I could see he was, you know how when there's a crust, a bit of a crust, that there's not just the track, but there's like a depression in the snow around the track.
Yep.
It's like
Sinking in.
Freshly made, yeah. Yeah, and it was sinking in, and it was a super windy day. I'm like, man, this buck's not far away. He's close. So I started on him, and he went to the top of the mountain. Then he went down the other side, crossed another road, and then he got into like a pine plantation, like just a square block, not that big, and it went straight downhill. And I was just walking, taking my time. I knew he wasn't going to hear me, even if I was right behind him. I knew I was going to see him or jump him. And I was just following down that track, and it leveled out at the bottom. And as soon as it leveled out, I look up, and there he is. He's like probably 15 yards only from me.
Oh shit!
And I shoulder the gun. As soon as I shouldered the gun, I could see his ass, and I could see his neck, and I could see his ears and part of his antlers. Anyway, so as soon as I shouldered the gun, he took a jump, and I just put I hunt with a peep, so I just put the bead on him into an opening. And when he came through there, I pulled the trigger, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is my deer," and it just went click.
Oh shit!
Said, what the hell? and of course, obviously that crossbolt safety somehow got clicked over.
Oh.
So I clicked it back over, and I put the gun on my shoulder again, and I could just see his tail and pieces of him going through the woods, and I fired off a shot, and I didn't touch him. But you got to take the shot. So I took it. But anyways, I rested him for a while. And then I got back on him, and he ran quite a little ways. And when he stopped running, he didn't fully stop running. He was like on a canter. And yeah, he just didn't slow down. Like I said, I think he was maybe like a youngish. He wasn't a big buck. He was probably like a 170, 180 pounder.
Yep.
But anyways, he didn't slow down, and I didn't catch up with him. And then later on that season, the second to last day of the season, I went into a new spot, and I ended up getting into some does and stuff, and kind of just trying to cut a track. I couldn't find a track all day that day either. It was on a new snow too. It snowed again. And anyways, I ended up leaving the woods that night, having bumped some does around and whatnot. And it was probably a half hour before dark when I got back to my truck, and I was, still shooting light. And, you guys, Isaac and Joey Davis wouldn't like this, but I put the gun in the passenger seat and left the chamber open, and nothing in it, of course, but just in case I saw a road deer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wasn't above shooting a road deer on the second last day of the season after sweating my balls off all season to shoot one.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I put the gun in the truck, and I got into the driver's seat, and my knee hit like the glove compartment in the Tacoma on the left side when you first opened the door, and it opened up. And a 30-30 shell was just sitting in there. I was like, man, I should take that out of there, shouldn't just have a gun cartridge sitting in my truck at all times all year round. So I put it in a cup holder, and I put it in a cup holder with a bunch of my 45-70 shells. And anyways, didn't think twice about it. Drove down the road, and it's just getting gray light, but still good shooting light. And I crest this hill, and I'm just thinking about putting my gun back in the gun sock and stuff. And there in the friggin' ditch, probably 7 years down the road, just getting ready to cross the road, is this just love dumb buck. And he was a beautiful buck. His antlers were outside his ears. But anyways, and so I slammed on the brakes, and I grabbed that gun, and I put it in park. And I just grabbed the first shell I could grab, and I opened the door. And a friggin' 30-30 shell slid right down the barrel of that. Slid right down out of the chamber, straight into the barrel of that 45-70.
Oh.
So I'm sitting there, banging the butt against my knee, trying to get that shell come back out. Finally, it did, and that deer's getting pretty sheepish. He's testosteroned up, and he must be on a doe or something, because he's so stupid. He's just saying, shoot me. But anyways, I finally got a 45. I finally got the right shell into it. And I closed the lever, and he's just slinking back off into the woods on the same side of the road he came out on. And I pulled the trigger, and she went click. And I said, oh my God, I'm going to throw this freaking gun in the woods. And anyways, yeah, no, I ended up taking that crossbow safety out of that gun, and Beartooth Mercantile makes a delete for that. So I got a nice delete in it now. So
Jeez.
I haven't screwed up with it since.
Oh,
yeah,
some heartbreakers right there. Then that's a hard way to kick off with a new gun. That hurts.
Don't ever feel bad for riding around,
God.
though. I mean, it's one of the best hunters I know He'd gotten one riding around like that before, and he goes, "If the deer gods are going to give you an easy one, you take it. So don't ever feel bad."
Oh
about
yeah,
that.
yeah. No, man, no. But I've had some close calls with bucks that I just got them up out of their bed and didn't quite wasn't quite ready to take a shot. And I've learned a lot. Like every time you track, you learn a ton, and that's just like, I feel like tracking is just kind of like a metaphor for life. Like you're going out there, you're going on an adventure. You got to be patient. You got to read the sign. You got to persevere. You're going to jump that deer. You're going to fall in some brooks. You're going to get wet, get sweaty, have sore knees, sore hips, sore back, but you keep going and hope eventually, you work hard enough, you're going to make your own luck, and it is going to happen. You're going to get a deer that's got your name written all over it.
For sure.
It's just going to happen no matter what. It's always a good time. And that's my goal for this year, is to get out onto a nice track and make it happen. That's my goal every year. But
hopefully to be a good snow year this year with the amount of rain we've been out. Is it as rainy up there as it is down here? It's been raining like crazy down here, so I'm hoping that translates into some snow come season time. But it's been a wet summer down here.
Oh man, it's been so wet. But I'm seeing a lot of partridges, a lot of young birds with their mom. So I don't think it's hurting the birds too much. But yeah, it's been pouring rain.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of figuring it all out right now, as seeing if it's going to be a good beech nut or oak year down here, or how the apples are going to be. Everything's kind of up in the air because with all the storms and shit we've got going on, we're kind of nervous to see what the food source is going to be like come deer season.
Oh yeah, we got a fair number of oaks up here. I don't hunt too much early season, so I don't pay a ton of attention. But I have been seeing them loaded with young acorns already. So
that's good.
And the beech trees I haven't checked the beech trees too much, but the oaks are definitely doing well.
Yep. Yeah. I wanna pick your brain on the whole guy in the tent thing here, because I know you've been doing that the hot tent and the platform wall tent stuff, because that's growing. Like more and more people are starting to hunt out of the back of their truck, and I don't know if that's to do with YouTube or just people wanting to get out there and do it, but it's a good thing to see. Yeah. So what's your setup for going into the backcountry, tenting and hunting out of that?
I've had a lot of different setups. I started back in 2013. I was fortunate enough to have a girlfriend whose dad was owned 300 acres in the middle of the woods, good hunting ground. But as often happens in November, you kind of go MIA and your girlfriend breaks up with you or whatever. But so I still wanted to hunt there the next fall. So I knew I had to do something about it. So I wasn't going to be staying at their house. So I had to buy a wall. So I had to I bought a wall tent. My brother had spent a winter in a wall tent the year before, so I kind of knew a little bit about him. So I just bought a wall tent and I put a wood stove in it. And, the wood stove was way too small for the tent, and it was like a 12 by 14 tent. The stove was meant for like a 8 by 10 tent, and I froze. 2014 was so cold. It was so cold, and that was miserable. But somehow I liked it enough to keep going with it. Yeah. So I started the first few years. I had the standard framed up wall tent, and then in 2017, my wall tent and everything I had burned down.
Oh shit.
So I just I left the tent and go hang out. Let's go have dinner with my buddy in town. And I left the fire going, and my clothes were drying over top of it. And it was a windy night. I don't know if the stovepipe fell apart or if my clothes fell down onto the stove. I don't know. I shouldn't have left it with the fire going. It was stupid. But anyways, I came back to the tent that night, and I crested the little hill, and it was just a blaze of going. Everything was just done. It was gone. But we had tenant insurance because we were renting the place at the time. My wife got tenant insurance, so it all got covered somehow. She was a genius.
Thank your wife for that one.
Anyway, so then I started to read the boys from the Adirondacks. There, Jim Massett and those guys. They came out with that book, The Adirondack Trackers.
Yep.
And I read that, and I saw they were using teepee tent. So I ended up buying a Nortent teepee tent, and I spent the 2018 season in that tent. And I just had like a it's like probably an 8x8 at the base. Not a lot of standing room because it's teepee style, but I had a Nico Trekker titanium stove in that, and some good seasoned wood. So it was a comfortable season, even though it was just a lightweight, ultralight teepee tent. And well, I wanted a bit more of a robust setup, so then I went with the next year. I went with a snow trekker tent, and those things are deadly. They're probably the snow trekker. They make the best. I think they're in Minnesota. I think. Anyways, they make the best tents going as far as I'm concerned. If you want a portable canvas wall tent that's gonna, do everything you need to do, hunt in all conditions, and then the stove is probably the most important part, though.
Yeah.
So I went through a few different iterations of stoves, and what I settled on was the 4-dog stove. It's a nice stove. It's a heavy stove, got a baffle in it, made for tents. I think that guy's in Minnesota, the guy who makes the 4-dog stove. And that thing will carry a hold of fire pretty well all night. You might have to get up and poke it once or twice, but very nice warm stove, and it'll keep you going.
Yep. That's cool. I want to do that one day. Get out there and do a hot tent hunt way out, and I don't know, maybe the Adirondacks or somewhere, but it's on my bucket list to do. So I want to do that. It sounds better than sleeping in the back of a short bed Tacoma. So probably a little more comfortable than that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and like if you can build a platform and get yourself up off the ground a little bit, it's really nice. Like being on the ground is you can take a spot on a hillside somewhere and we're way back where no one can find it, and just know you can pop a tent up on there. Then that makes all the difference being up off the ground.
Yep. Yeah, it ain't sucking the heat right out of you. I had a question for you, but you kind of already answered it. I was going to say, did you have any close calls out there tenting? But it sounds like the fire right there, that's your close call.
Yeah, that was a bad one. So now I'm really extra cautious with the fire setup. I got the welder's blanket down, and I like triple screw the weld stovepipe together and everything. I don't want that to happen again. That was too scary. We almost left a dog in the tent that night too.
Oh, geez.
When we went into town. So man, that's just
dodge the bullet
you don't
right
mess
there.
around with fire.
No.
Yeah,
definitely
exactly.
not.
I lost my gun. I lost a shotgun and a rifle, and all my wool hunting clothes, all my Filson stuff, all my Beagle stuff, all the stuff I'd worn for years and years. It all just disappeared. So I had to bum my rifle off my dad. I had a 45-70, and I ended up borrowing a 375 Marlin off him, and then my buddy Nathan some wool pants and a red Mackinac for the rest of the year. So
yeah. Hey,
I had good friends there, but
making do with what you got. I got one more question for you, and Greg's got one more question for you. Then we can start wrapping it up. But after everything we talked about here tonight and today, and all the scouting you do and stuff, I know I seen you out there doing some scouting, checking signposts, cameras, all that stuff. What's your plan for 2023 right now? You got some bucks that you're targeting, or are you going to kind of free ball it? What's your plan?
Oh yeah, you still there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, I just lost you for a second. Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
You still there?
Or, yeah, I'm here. Are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you now. So my question was, what's your plan for the 2023 hunting season? I've seen you out there on social media doing your scouting and cameras and all that stuff. Do you have some bucks that you've been targeting for a few years that you're going to go after? Are you going to free ball it, or what's your plan for the season?
Free balling it right now. It's pretty humid, but
yeah.
You're a cool doctor, man. I never, doctors don't talk like that in the United States. You're just you're a nice guy. You got to move down here.
Yeah, I try and keep it pretty chill, man. Life's too short.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's a great question. There's one there. Well, obviously, there's a couple of bucks that were around last year that I got on camera. In Nova Scotia here in the valley that I would love to come across this year. I'm not targeting any in particular. I just want to shoot a mature buck, and I'm probably going to do my best to pass on a 2.5 or younger buck this year. And where I'm hunting the same spot over the last few years, I'd like to see that those deer grow up a little bit, to be a bit more. And that's just the evolution of the hunter, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
you just kind of takes different stuff to get you excited. But there's a nice 10-pointer that was 4.5 last year. I know, pretty confident it was 4.5 last year. If he's around this year, I'd like to settle the floor with him. And then, but I don't have any early season bucks that I'm not seeing anything on any of my cams right now. I want to go after in September or early October. I'll be probably hunting those scrapes that get used year after year, late October, and then I'll stick to the does in November when the rut is on. And it might be a stupid thing that I'm doing, but I am going to move that stand I shot those 2 bucks in last year to a different location, because even though I have the patience to sit, I am a still hunter and tracker at heart, and I do not want to be looking at the same stuff I did last year, day after day.
Yeah.
Change up a little bit.
Yeah.
So there is a nice heavily used spot I discovered on snow after the season was over last year. And then obviously, snow, my number one goal would be to get the rifle out and go out on the track and try and get a monster on the track. That would be the ultimate goal.
Yep.
Awesome. So my question for you is more health related, seeing that you're in the medical field. Do you have any good advice you could give us, middle-aged and older-age hunters, as far as extending our longevity in the woods, as far as taking care of your body, and what you recommend and what you see with the people in your practice?
Is this Greg asking this one?
This is.
Yeah, I heard you were going to die when you're 50 or something like that.
Oh, from that comment there on YouTube.
Yeah, so that's why I'm asking. I only got a couple years left. Yeah, I only got a couple years left here.
Yeah, guy on the YouTube commented on the Gandalf video.
So young, so fat, right? Isn't that
so
what he
young
called
and
you?
so fat. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a beauty buck part. Right?
Thanks, bud.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So I'm a competitive guy, and I'm pretty into like fitness and all that stuff. Like if you want to be hanging around the woods and you want to be going tracking and stuff, like obviously you look at the Benoits and some of those guys, they got the power guts going, right? And they still did it. So you don't need to be, and even Larry says, Lanny, sorry, you don't need to be in tip top form to do it. You can still do it, if you're not, running marathons or anything. But yeah, I think you want to eat half decent. You don't want to. It's just the same old cliche stuff. Don't eat the garbage. I mean, all the times. Lay off the alcohol, moderate the alcohol as much as you can. Drink lots of water. Go at the very least. Get on the bike in the summer when the weather is good and stuff. But yeah, just try and do something every day, or more days than not. That's a little bit physically taxing.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's just walking half an hour, if you can, 5 days a week in the woods or doing some hills.
Yep.
I mean, I prefer you were doing some deadlifts and back squats and stuff like that for the deer dragging legs. But, don't eat like an asshole and move your body as much as possible.
Yeah, that's some good advice right there.
Well, I lift weights with Adam, and he won't let me do legs. So
what are you talking about?
I'm getting more and more top heavy by the minute.
Yeah, that's it right there.
Yeah.
I've got one non-deer hunting question for you, and this is for me and maybe for you too, Greg. But is the Trailer Park Boys show just as big up in Nova Scotia as it is down here, or what?
Oh, and you got to watch that too? Holy jeez.
Oh yeah.
That show is huge.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I got a lot of quotes off of that show.
A lot of Rickyisms for you. But yeah, that's my closing question. I just had to know if it's as big up there as it is down here, because it's huge. But love that show.
Yeah. Everybody. I highly recommend everybody checks that out. It's some good quality television right there.
Yep, you'll get yourself some new sayings to use during deer season when things aren't going your way. So, away she goes.
That's right. Away she goes. That's right.
All right. Well, we'll close out this episode, but Matt, stay on the phone. We'll chat with you for a second. But for everybody that tuned into this and listening, we want to thank you, Matt, for doing this and being our first Canadian guest, talking some Canadian deer hunting. It's been
Yeah,
some good insights and learned a lot.
Really enjoyable. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem, boys. Again, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed my time too.
Thank you. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you guys on the next episode.
You're listening to STAGR Cast, brought to you by STAGR Gear.